Welcome to Precision Animal Training, where we teach big lessons through the lens of getting precise science-based behavior. I'm Kier like your ear, Kirsten, Crawl like a baby Kraljevic, animal trainer, behavior nerd, and your host. This is a show about real, lasting change. The science of precision, the power of pursuing perfect timing, the art of truly seeing and shaping behavior. Whether you're working with chickens, dogs, dolphins, parrots, horses, or even ourselves. Expect real stories from the field, timeless principles that transfer across species, and practical insights you can apply immediately. Because if you can train a chicken with clarity, kindness, and razor-sharp precision, you can train almost anything. So grab a notebook. This is your personal masterclass in curiosity, mechanics, and true behavioral understanding. Today, we're on the Gulf Coast of Alabama with an episode that pulls back the curtain on the industrial revolution of animal behavior. Joined by the incomparable Dr. Bob Bailey, we're unpacking how the Brelands transformed trained animal roadside attractions into a mass market business and pioneered scalable systems for shipping and training animals across North America. We'll explore the nuts and bolts of automation, the development of training protocols, and a corporate culture that prized efficiency, consistency, and relentless innovation. What did it take to train a small army of staff and thousands of animals with performance and profit top of mind? And why did the Brelands attempt to bring clicker training to the general public fizzle out decades before it became mainstream? If you've ever wanted a look inside the original animal training think tank, this episode is your backstage pass. So come learn with me. Let's dive in. Welcome back, and we're on the Gulf Coast of Alabama talking to Dr. Bob Bailey, who I've said before is incredibly special to me, as well as my mentor. I couldn't wait to come back because this is where the stuff gets really good. So we have ABE, we have the Brelands. They form this company. They go from the feed salesman, and now they are shipping acts to roadside attractions all over the world at this point. Is that right?
The all over the world came a bit later, but certainly all over the country.
Okay.
And Canada.
Okay, so you entrepreneurs out there, you're scratching your head saying, how are they scaling this? What does it look like behind the scenes at their facility? What's going on, Bob? How did they do this?
Well, by this time, the Brelands had begun to apply a lot of the stuff they'd learned from Fred Skinner about automated equipment, how to provide reinforcement, how to detect what the animal's doing, building in sensors that really described to the equipment what the animal is doing at the time. And the Brelands had developed the necessary, let's say, equipment to ship animals and equipment. That was a major part, a learning process. And they worked with the railroad companies. And later on, in the 1950s, they did the same thing with airlines, learning how to ship animals on aircraft. So more and more they were producing. Their product was being successfully marketed, word of mouth, and by various conventions, sales, trade shows around the country. It wasn't a public thing. There was very little activity in the public arena. Now, the product itself was very much in the public area. So
how were they making the sausage, so to speak? Like, what behind the scenes was allowing them to scale at this rate? I mean, it was rather quickly.
Yeah, two things were occurring. One is the development of the equipment, particularly sensors that told the equipment what the animal was doing so that decisions could be made. So they were learning how to process this, call it robotics, if you will, in order to reinforce the animal at the right time, and only at the right time.
I am going to stop you there for a second because I'm going to bring this right to today. And Bob has told me this for years, and I believe that is the next innovation in animal training, is to automate the training, because we are the wild card, right? So think about this. They were thinking about this and working this problem out in the 50s, right, Bob? Is that...
Well, actually, they started in the 40s. Their first automated equipment came out in 1949.
Right. So I just want you to keep that in the back of your head as he continues with this story. So, yeah, they're testing sensors, so they're always working with technology as well.
Yeah. Yes. That, again, it's just one of the things they had to resolve. But the other thing that they were working on is a development of a program, systematization of training people, of training their own staff.
Now you're talking my language here, right? Because haven't we always wanted that? I say we as if I can speak for the industry, but wouldn't it be cool if we trained people with some consistency, so there was like a language that we all spoke and there was at least a bottom floor of competency?
The Brelands, especially Marion, developed a program for training the feed salesmen back in the 40s, as I've already described. She wrote a manual, a detailed manual on how to train animals in general, and specifically chickens, and they mentioned rabbits also. But the point is that if you can train a chicken, you can train all the others without any particular problem. So they had a manual. And all they had to do was translate that manual that was meant for General Mills to training their own personnel at their training farm. And so they started a program for developing trainers. Now they had to hire trainers. And that meant that they had to search for people that were trainable. And they did that. They had this little program of their own where they would select people who were very, very good with animals. And by good with animals, they would follow instructions. They would be sensitive to the behavior of the animals. They would have to have a good work ethic. So the vast majority of people who worked for them, whether in Minnesota or in Arkansas, where they later moved, those people were all Arkansas farm boys. And they were the ones used to getting up at 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning to milk the cows and things like that. So the idea of working with animals had no particular problem for them. They were perfectly okay with this. And that they had already a good work ethic. And then they went into this program where first they just cared for animals.
Tell me more.
We had a person in charge of husbandry at Animal Behavior Enterprises. Now, this is in Arkansas. We moved to Arkansas in 1950, between 50 and 51. This gentleman's name was Ray Wiley, and he had volunteered for the Marines in 1938. And so he went completely through the war at the battlefront in the Pacific. And so he came out a sergeant and a very, very tough individual. He was in charge of animal care. Now, I said he was tough, but you have never met anyone more gentle as far as the animals are concerned. And he very much considered the animals as his, no one else's. So when you worked for Ray Wiley, you followed his instructions. You kept information. You learned how to, if you didn't know already, you learned how to write down things that are going on. Every animal had 3 records. Every animal at the farm, and we had thousands, that the animal had a health record, it had a training record, and it had the daily record of things that would particularly be happening with that particular animal. So people learned how to keep records at ABE. Anyway, if the person survived being with Ray Wiley for 6 months to a year, he would be considered for the A training job. But they had to go through that. And then there were certain levels of trainers, and that evolved over time. We became more hierarchical over time, especially after I came aboard in the 1960s. But these trainers, by the time they finished and they became ABE, Animal Behavior Enterprises trainers, they knew what they were doing. They were competent. They were the most competent trainers, as far as I'm concerned, in the world. They were very good at what they did, and they also knew how to teach other people how to train because they had been through it themselves. They had attended classes. They were not allowed to train any animals until they had developed very high level of skills.
And by skills, of course, he's talking about the husbandry and the record keeping, but he's also talking about the use of the bridging signal, the bridging stimulus.
Yes, well, the whole technology, the methodology of training is what they were taught, not just the bridging signal,
Correct.
which is important.
Yes.
But it was also the observation of the animal,
Yes.
responding to the animal's behavior, and being able to change their behavior. They learned very early on that if things are not moving rapidly, there is something they are doing wrong. They, the trainer, is doing wrong. Don't blame it all on the animal. You've got to change your behavior in order to change the behavior of the animal.
So remember in the beginning, we said any animal, any trainer using any method can train any animal given enough time. They're putting themselves against time because they are trying to produce as many of these shows as they can produce, or many of these coin-operated systems.
We were a for-profit organization. The less it cost us to train an animal to the level of fluency, which meant at the very highest level of performance, the less it cost us, the more money we made, and not just the Brelands and later myself, but all of the trainers, because we had bonuses. We had lots of benefits for our trainers, reinforcement, you might say, for the people who are getting the behavior. And they knew this, and therefore they were looking for more efficient ways of training.
So this culture is one of efficiency, and they are absolutely for profit. If you look at our industry today, in many parts of that, especially in dog training, I'm going to argue that there's not really that incentive for efficiency in a lot of people's models. It doesn't pay to train that dog quickly. And I just throw that out there for you to think about against what compare against what we're talking about here. So in this culture, these guys are at lunchtime. What are they doing, Bob?
Well, they had lots of games for developing their own skill level. But I think the big thing is that as the trainers became more skilled, that instead of training one chicken, they're training 12 chickens simultaneously. If they're training dogs, they're not training one dog. They're going to be training 4 dogs, up to 6 dogs at once. Now, automation helped with some of this, but a lot of it was just the skill level of the trainer, positioning yourself where you could reinforce appropriately, and designing the environment in such a way where you can train multiple animals at once, whether they're macaws or cockatoos or whatever animals you happen to be working at the time.
Did you have any kind of incentive programs for them to improve?
Well, we had a profit-sharing program. That was for everybody. But if a person discovered, postulated, if nothing else, a more efficient way of training an animal, and he would present that, I have this way I think is going to be a lot better. He would present that. And if it sounded reasonable, it doesn't hurt the animal. Important that the animal is good health is always considered. And if it sounds good, give him a couple of animals and the time, try it. And you keep the data, And again, everyone kept data about every animal they worked with. So he'd finish with the training, come back to us. If it showed promise, this is really faster than the regular way we do this. And remember, we trained by program. We had what was called protocols. We had developed ways of training certain behaviors. So if your way is faster, then we are going to take 2 other people and give them the animals, and that trainer that is offering this as a new protocol writes out the protocol, gives it to the other trainers. Now they train. They are not the person who came up with it. They are new people. And this person or these 2 people, they try it out. If they come up with essentially the same results, that it's really faster, that means new protocol, all the old protocols for that behavior thrown away, and everyone trains. Everyone changes to the new protocol because we want it to be faster, more efficient, more precise. We do not reduce the level of performance of the animal. That's not the way that we economize. We never did that. Animal Behavior Enterprises was in business for essentially 50 years. And there had to be a reason why clients kept coming back time after time. And it's because our animals did what they were supposed to do.
To me, when I hear the workings of that corporate culture at that time, training animals in Hot Springs, Arkansas, it's fascinating to me. Are you an animal trainer ready to sharpen your skills to a legendary level? Or a corporate leader looking for a fresh, powerful way to boost team dynamics, decision-making, and leadership? Discover Kirsten's Chicken Workshops, an immersive 5-day experience rooted in the science-based curated exercises of the legendary Bob and Marion Bailey. Train a live chicken using the principles of operant conditioning, like positive reinforcement. Why chickens? They're fast, honest teachers that instantly reveal where you need to improve your training skills. No fluff, just real results that transfer to dogs, horses, or any species you want to train, and even to leading people more effectively. Trainers call it life-changing. Dr. Bob Bailey himself endorses it as the ultimate mechanical skill builder. So visit Kirsten'sChickenWorkshops.com right now and sign up for the waitlist. Spots fill fast. Train a chicken, change the way you train and lead forever. Head to Kirsten'sChickenWorkshops.com today.
The Brelands had gotten confident that they could teach this technology, this methodology, not just to their people, but to the public. They believed they could do this. So they spent a year. They began actually in late 1953, and they put this out. They published it in 1955, a manual for the training of dogs. And the Brelands had this manual. They had a clicker device that they put out that was in the shape of a large spoon, because in those days they didn't have dry food. You only had the canned food. So this kit contained a can holder that would fit on any of the cans of the major producers of dog food. They had this spoon that had the clicker built right into it. You'd hold it in your hand and you could click the clicker. And there was this manual that was published along with it. It was a flip chart type manual. And they had 13 lessons for training your animal to do things. And this was in 1955. What the Brelands didn't realize was that each of the food companies out there, the Purina, the Quaker Oats people, all the major producers, had dog training advisory boards. The Brelands did not realize the power of these boards, and that they did not like the idea of feeding the animals as a way of training.
Wow.
And they nixed it. The companies would not participate. And that was the only pathway. Remember, we did not have the sorts of programs, the online programs,
Right.
the easy way. And advertising and television is pretty expensive
Right.
at the time. So they tried it for 2 years and penetrated nowhere. No one would handle it.
Wow. That pains me. That physically pains me.
It was just against the very coercive methods that were being used in the 1950s.
And so that was another missed opportunity for this to, I'm going to use the word viral, for this to go viral into the general public.
Yeah. They tried again about 1960. The results were really much the same. And by that time, the Brelands had really, I'm going to say, moved on. There were so many markets that they were being involved in commercial markets. Again, not public, but commercial.
Right.
It was, you might say, kind of funny that they were so well known in the commercial markets that they were in all of the theme parks across the United States, and yet they were not really known to the public. And I say not to the public. I've actually published a technical article on the Brelands in the popular press. And in the 1950s and 60s, early 60s, they actually appeared a lot in popular magazines.
They appear in popular magazines, and they're still existing in that place in between because they're keeping data. They have records. They're putting themselves against time and for the almighty dollar. You know, they're a for-profit company, and they're existing in that space in between academia and the general public. They're mass producing behavior, and the public has yet to really realize that. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I'd say.
So next episode, we're moving on. We're going into the open environment work, which I just think is fascinating. And we're going to weave back to the next attempt of bringing this to you guys, the public. Thanks for joining us on Precision Animal Training. Before we close, let's reflect on a few standout lessons from today's episode. First, we explored how the Brelands scaled up their animal training business, not just with clever technology like automated sensors and reinforcement equipment, but by systematizing how they trained people. Consistency and efficiency were the backbone of their operation. Second, we dug into the culture they built, clear records, a fierce focus on results, and trainers who were committed to learning and improving. From Ray Wiley's meticulous husbandry standards to the trainer profit sharing and constant drive for better methods, the team at Animal Behavior Enterprises became pioneers of both process and performance. And finally, we saw just how far ahead of their time the Brelands were, pushing for public education, automation, and a science-based approach decades before clicker training was common vocabulary. Their ideas didn't break into the mainstream right away, but they laid the foundation for modern animal training as we know it. We're just getting started. Next episode, we'll move into the open environment work that took this revolution one step further and explore the Brelands' next big attempt to connect directly with the public. Until then, stay curious, stay precise, and keep challenging yourself. Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share what's next on Precision Animal Training. Thanks for listening to the Precision Animal Training Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate, and review us wherever you listen. It helps spread the word to more trainers like you. Share the show with a friend who could use a behavior breakthrough. Want to dive deeper into precision animal training? Head to Kirsten'sChickenWorkshops.com to learn about the workshops, sign up, or join the waitlist for the next series. That's Kirsten'sChickenWorkshops.com, where legendary science-based behavioral technology meets tomorrow's top trainers. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, remember, train a chicken, change the way you train forever. This show was edited and produced by Johnny Gwynn at Deep Fried Studios.